The chair recognizes herself for 5 minutes. It is time that we dispense with the administration's charade that our anti-ISIL strategy is a success. In Iraq, ISIL holds almost a third of the country's territory and controls major strategic population centers in Mosul, Fallujah, and Ramadi. While Secretary Carter may blame the Iraqi military for not having the will to fight in Ramadi, Prime Minister Abadi has strongly denied it and said yesterday that he is not receiving the arms and support necessary for him to take on ISIL. In Syria, ISIL controls half the country's territory, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. ISIL's capture of Tadmor, adjacent to the ancient city of Palmyra, gives them control of a strategic crossroads and unrestricted access to Iraq's Anbar province. There are some success stories where we have been able to push ISIL back from its positions, but ISIL continues to spread into other areas as well. ISIL is already in Libya, Egypt, Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. It is also creeping closer to Jordan and Lebanon, and Syrian foreign fighters have even reached our own hemisphere in the Caribbean. ISIL and its ideology are metastasizing across the region. Foreign fighters are pouring into Iraq, to Syria, to Libya. Billions of people have been displaced. Millions of people have been displaced, putting strains on our allies, and there are humanitarian crises throughout the Middle East. Our train and equip program in Syria is now only just getting off the ground, and according to the latest reports, only 2,000 fighters have been identified, 400 have been vetted, only 90 have begun training. On top of that, this past weekend, one of the Syrian commanders participating in the U.S. Train and Equip program threatened to withdraw 1,000 of his fighters from the program because a DoD official said he'd have to promise not to attack Assad. Incredibly, this is the same Assad who, according to press reports and the Twitter account of the U.S. Embassy Syria yesterday, is providing advanced air support for ISIL and is actively seeking to bolster ISIL's position against the Syrian population in the moderate stronghold of Aleppo. The same Assad whose brutality the embassy is now admitting is ISIL's best recruiting tool and who is being propped up by an Iranian regime using the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, its proxy Hezbollah, and thousands of foreign fighters to fight on Assad's behalf. The same Assad who failed to disclose his entire chemical weapons arsenal and is using barrel bombs and chemical weapons to kill hundreds of thousands of his own people, almost 250,000 by last count. And yet we're going to make our small number of trained Syrian fighters promise not to fight this monster? Iran is also funneling Assad billions of dollars to ensure his survival, and since money is fungible, these are the same billions that were unfrozen as part of the disastrous nuclear negotiations. Our strategy in Iraq cannot and must not be separated from a strategy in Syria, one that removes Assad and a strategy that takes on Iran. Iran is not and will not work in the interest of the United States, no matter what dreams the administration might have. You cannot heal sectarian tensions in Iraq while allowing Iran to exacerbate them, including through its Shiite militias that are said to have committed horrific human rights violations. You cannot stop the flow of foreign fighters without getting tough on Turkey. And you cannot expect to have success with a minimal airstrike campaign which refuses to deploy forward spotters to improve targeting. Our train and equip program in Iraq is scheduled to bring together approximately 5,000 to 10,000 people, including while ISIL is gaining 1,000 recruits per month. We cannot wait a year for this program to be up and ready. The administration has laid out some lines of effort as part of its anti-ISIL strategy, including military and humanitarian support and counter-finance and counter-narrative efforts that we must continue with greater energy and better efficiency, but they do not address the fundamental miscalculations that this administration continues to make with regard to Assad and with regard to Iran, and they do not inspire confidence that this administration has much of a strategy at all. Beyond these basic contradictions of strategy, here are a few suggestions that I hope the administration, Congress, and others consider immediately. Destroy or neutralize Assad's air capabilities. Sanction Assad and his military officials to hasten the collapse of his regime. Sanction any entity, including the Russians and Iranians, that are propping up Assad. Listen to our military commanders who say we should at least discuss the possibility of boots on the ground, including U.S. Special Forces in Iraqi military units. Also, stop telegraphing to our enemies that what we are not willing to do. And urge the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, countries to put their boots on the ground. Consider the best way to equip anti-ISIL forces in Iraq, whether that's by directly arming the Kurds, the Sunni tribes, or integrated units. And finally, the United States Congress should approve an authorization for the use of military force that goes a lot farther than what the President has requested and appropriately characterizes the scale, goals, capabilities, and identity of the enemy. These are all ideas that could change our approach to ISIL from one of the bare minimum, which is what we have now, to one that is actually having a positive impact that the President claims that he desires. With that, I turn to my friend, the Ranking Member, Mr. Deutsch.